Welcome everyone to this week's video. Today we are on Fish Friday number 43 and have a good one. I promise you have heard of this fish and probably watched a movie about it. Today we are going to be talking about the great white shark. Great white shark, or scientific name Carcharodon carcharias. Again, scientific name Carcharodon carcharias. If you look this up, you're going to notice CH in the scientific name. That is still a K sound. Still makes a K. Great white sharks are in the family Lamnidae, which is the family of white sharks or mackerel sharks. There's certain characteristics that classify them this, but they are very, very quite in the middle of the white shark family. They were used to be thought that they were a coastal species. So it used to be, scientists used to think, and people used to think that they hung around coastlines. They knew that they were in all major oceans all across the world. But they thought that they were hanging out in the coast and then on the surface. But they're actually very well known to be an open water species of fish as well. Basically, it has been determined that any water between 12 and 24 degrees Celsius, which that's 54 to 75 degrees Fahrenheit, they're going to be in that water. And they're also very, very highly migratory. These things travel many thousands of miles. There has been documentation of it, going from like New Zealand to Hawaii, to Japan, like the same shark. So these things are always on the move, they're always active, and they're always migrating. It's almost not even migration, they just literally travel all. As you can imagine, these are a large fish. These are big. You've seen pictures, you've seen recordings. This is a large fish. Females are going to get significantly larger than males. Females, basically your largest female is going to be up to 6.1 meters long. That's about 20 feet. And they're going to weigh 1,905 to 2,268 kilograms. So what that breaks down to is basically the very largest females are going to be about 20 feet long, which this is like the absolute longest. 20 feet long and somewhere between 4,200 and 5,000 pounds. So 2.5 tons. 2 tons to 2.5 tons. These things are massive. Obviously, most of them are going to be smaller. On average, males are going to be 3.4 to 4 meters, and which that's about 11 to 13 feet long. And females are going to average 4.6 to 4.9 meters. So that's 15 to 16. And then when you combine the two, their average weights are between 522 and 771 kilograms. Which that's about 1,150 pounds to 1,700 pounds. So 1,150 to 1,700. That's your average. That's still an incredibly large fish, don't get me wrong. And in fact, among living cartilaginous fish, so your cartilage fish, among the living ones, only the whale shark, basking shark, and the giant manta ray, which we have covered on a Fish Friday, those are the only ones that are on average larger and heavier than great white sharks, which is kind of crazy to think about it. We know about whale sharks, basking sharks, or we the big, but when you think the giant manta ray, you usually don't think of giant manta rays being larger than great white sharks. However, whale sharks, basking shark, manta rays, those are filter feeders. Those are large filter feeders. That makes the great white shark the largest existing macro-predatory fish. Can't call them the predatory fish because technically eating krill and plankton, they are eating animals. They are planktonivorous fish are still technically predatory, kinda. But these are, great white sharks they're eating larger food stuff. We'll get into that. I didn't go too much into the, just physical description of the great white shark because, quite frankly, I really hope you know that it's a great white shark. Large conical snout. They've got that bicoloration pattern that we've talked about numerous times in marine species. Pale belly with a gray back. That helps them for camouflage in open waters. Something that's important to note: the lobes of the tail fin in white sharks are going to be relatively the same on top and bottom. Yada yada. It's kind of there. Something we've talked about in other sharks. These do have ampullae of Lorenzini. That is the little oh my goodness, what is it called? The little organs, primarily found in the snout, I believe. And the ampullae of Lorenzini are used to detect electromagnetic pulses. And they're so sensitive that they can actually detect a heartbeat even when everything is standing very still. So these things can detect a very, very minute amount of electricity in water. Something interesting to note though, because of their large size and other factors, great white sharks actually maintain a warmer body temperature than the surrounding water. So you can think of these, I do not like this term, but these are basically a warm-blooded fish. These have their body temperature is not completely regulated by the environment. When you talk about warm-blooded versus cold-blooded, I don't like warm. These things are actually a good example of gigantothermy. Basically, great white sharks are so big and massive that they maintain an internal core temperature above the level of the water. They also have something called cross-current heat exchange. So cross-current heat exchange in their fins, they have capillaries that transfer heat from the warm blood coming from the body and take it to the cold blood coming from the tips of the fins. We're gonna get into that, Gentle. We're gonna get into that one. Now, because of that, maintaining that warmer body temperature, that really allows great white sharks to be very active and swim at pretty substantial speeds. In fact, most of your great white sharks they can swim at speeds of 25 kilometers per hour. So that's about 16 miles an hour. That's actually not uncommon for them to be just kind of traveling. Normally they're traveling less than that, but that's not an uncommon speed. That's not a stretch. That's not them sprinting. It's just kind of there. That also allows them to be a deeper water fish than a lot of people think about. Most of the time we thought, like I talked about earlier, we thought these were a coastal fish and stayed on the surface. Well, now these have been documented going very deep, down to 1,200 meters. That's 3,900. It can go really, really far. But most of the time, now we're finally talking about, their food. You're going to see pictures of them doing this. Dun, 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 dun. And that's breaching. They're one of the sharks that have a breaching behavior. And what they're doing is they're traveling around looking for foodstuffs. And when they go up, when we were talking about their speed, that 25 kilometers per hour, 16 miles per hour, when they're breaching, this is when they're sprinting, and peak burst speed at this point is estimated to be a little over 40 kilometers per hour, which that's a little over 25 miles. Think about it, that's swimming. So that's pretty damn fast. Especially when you think about it, you've got basically a ton of fish just barreling it. Now, obviously, teeth. People know them for their teeth. Great whites are going to have up to 300 teeth, and they are all going to be serrated and they're going to be triangular. And yes, it is very true. They have rows in the back of the jaw that as soon as a tooth gets knocked out, new one moves in to take its place. That is common throughout sharks. That's just how they operate. Actually, kind of neat. These are a long-lived species. It is now estimated that great white sharks are going to live as long as 70 years or more. In fact, it's very well kind of established. It used to think they were around 40 years, but now it's very much, they're like, well, it's more than 70 years. And that is why some of the things, why this species is actually kind of in trouble. One of the reasons, not only do they live a long time, it is now, a study in 2014 came out and determined that it takes 26 years for a male to reach sexual maturity. 26 years before a male can reproduce. It takes females 33 years, according to this study. The study seems to be pretty well done. So basically, have a really, really long maturing fish, and they do not have a lot of babies. But speaking about babies, something that a lot of people don't realize is this is an ovoviparous species. Ovoviparous, meaning that the eggs actually hatch inside and they give live birth. It's not technically, live birth like mammals, but basically instead of just laying the eggs, they keep the eggs inside and then the eggs hatch. And then something interesting to note, the baby sharks that survive in the uterus will actually eat all the other baby sharks in there, and that causes them to be born healthier and stronger. So basically, they're in the womb eating all their brothers and sisters, because the more you can eat, the bigger and badder you are. And just something interesting to note: when the young do hatch, when the pups do get, when the pups do get birth, the pups are going to be about 3 to 5 feet long. But the mothers do not take care of them. The mothers birth them and leave them alone, and sometimes even try and turn around and eat their young. They have no parental skills or want to protect at all. So, we've talked about, we talked a little bit about, well, I guess we haven't. So what do great whites eat? Well, great whites are, they're one of the primary predators of marine mammals, up to the size of large baleen whale. Cars, if you've watched the movie, they'll also eat fish and seabirds, so they're going to eat dolphins, they're going to eat seals, they're going to eat whales, they're going to eat, fish, they're going to eat birds. Basically, they're going to try and eat anything. However, it has been determined now that whale carcasses are much more important than previously thought. And I have a bunch of dogs in my room trying to attention. Oh, Ranger. So it's actually, we've known that whale carcasses, great whites go up and take bites out of whale carcasses that blubber. These animals really need a high fat and high protein rich diet. Specifically, high fat is more important to them. So they're really looking for like whale blubber. So it's been shown that at a whale carcass, great whites will actually congregate and get along and bite whale blubber. And in fact, not only will they bite whale blubber, they will actually spit out semi-rotten pieces of whale blubber to try and find a better piece of whale blubber. So they can be very specific about what they eat. However, talking about what they eat, what eats great whites? Well, there's really only a couple of things that eat great whites, and that's bigger great whites and killer whales. Killer whales are actually the only known occasional predator. And it's very, very few and far in between. Normally they gang up on them, but it's honestly been kind of scary when you look at what killer whales have done to great whites. There is a documented instance to where a female great white and a female killer whale got into a fight, the killer whale flipped the great white on its back and basically kept that great white on its back by biting the fins and holding it down basically, and eventually that great white suffocated because they cannot swim on their back for any extended amount of time. They actually suffocate. Their lungs completely collapse. So that killer whale basically suffocated it, disemboweled it, ate its liver, and moved on. So yeah, killer whales are about the only thing other than man. But we're gonna get into that. Now, there has been a lot of debate, about this fish. Are they the actual ones responsible for human bites? All the research that I have looked into says yes. Actually, great whites are responsible for more recorded human bites than any other shark. People think it's bull sharks, great whites, and great whites do get a bad rap. Don't get me wrong, but these are responsible, from everything that I've seen, these are responsible for more recorded human bites than any other shark. However, 272 unprovoked bite incidents on humans as of 2020. So, yeah. 272 unprovoked bite incidents on humans as of 2012. These things get a pretty bad rap for attacking people when they have not done a whole heck of a lot. Now, great white sharks are listed as a vulnerable species. These are on the decline. Do not get this now. And a large reason for that is the bad rap that these. Jaws is one of the worst things that have ever happened to. Jaws really terrified the public. It really turned them against sharks in general, but more specifically great whites. Because of the movie Jaws, things like shark culling happened. Shark culling still happens in the coast of Australia. Shark culling is when a government basically sponsors a program to catch and kill as many sharks as possible. That usually happens a couple of months to a year after a documented shark attack happens. One bite happens and the government tries to basically kill sharks. It's really sad. Because it also kills numerous other things. And yes, you are much more likely to get struck by lightning than getting bit by it. However, it's really shifted to being shark tourism. Shark tourism has actually become a very lucrative industry. People going in the cages and diving with the great white sharks. It's become very lucrative and has earned people much, much more money. Or earned countries much more. So there is a big push recently to actually protect great whites, because we don't actually have as much as this species has been studied. And trust me, this was one of the few species that I actually had to cut out information instead of do active research. I was trying to figure out what exactly I needed in this video. This species, as well documented it is, we still don't know a whole lot about it. So now, finally, we are going to end the video on the two interesting facts. We got two interesting facts that we're going to end the video on today. So, one of the things that people might be interested in is bite force. How hard do great white sharks bite? Well, in 2008, scientists did a bite force study, and it was determined that a specimen 3,324 kilograms, which is 7,328 pounds, would have a bite force of 18,216 newtons. That's 4,095 pounds of force. That's a extremely hard bite. However, I don't like that study because remember what I said, a specimen 7,300 pounds would have a bite force of that, yada yada. However, we said that the absolute largest ones like ever recorded were 5,000 pounds. So I don't really like that, but essentially you can imagine that these things can bite pretty hard. But they don't bite through things. What they do is they go up to something and then they twist. They use their serrated edges of the knife to take off chunks of whatever they're biting. So they can bite hard, but I don't really have a good number for what a normal sized great white would be. But the last final fact that we're going to end on, and this was something that I had no knowledge of that really surprised me. One of the things that is most related to great white sharks, especially in movies in Hollywood, the megalodon. Megalodon, you know, the giant shark that was back in the fossil record, which, don't get me wrong, it was massive. Megalodon was 55 feet long, I think. Giant head, giant there. Everyone thinks, that was, fossil, that was dinosaur version of great white. And it actually is not the case at all. Great white sharks are not related to megalodons really in any way. Their actual closest relative is mako sharks. They were on a completely different lineage than megalodon or any of your megatooth sharks. So I think that's an incredibly interesting fact. I always thought that they were related. Turns out not related at all. But thank you guys so much again. I really appreciate it, and I hope to see you again. If I don't, please be safe. Have a great day. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you do. I'd really appreciate it, and I hope to see you again. And